To me, it was delightful. Honest to goodness village. There were brick walks that the Village Improvement Society built. Then they had oil lamps on the streets. Nearly everybody in town had half to 1 acre of ground. It was just a delightful atmosphere. I still can't get over it. I still say, I'm going to the village. Everyone in Falls Church used to have a front porch. I would love to just sit on my front porch watching the world go by, or just being still.
I'm here on a very nice December afternoon with Joanne Rodman and Wesley Warren on their house in Falls Church, and we're on the porch as we've been on other segments, and it's a very nice day. We're fortunate for that, and which allows us to sit out here. Do you use the porch very often in the winter, and how do you use it in the course of the year?
Well, we don't actually use it a lot in the wintertime, although we're fortunate enough to have nice enough weather a lot of the time in the winter that we could spend more time out here. And this is the south side, so in the afternoon the sun comes here and it actually gets quite warm in the winter. But of course the summertime is when we use it the most. We have a lot of houseplants, big houseplants that love spending the summer outdoors. And so we're always anxious in the spring to get them out and get the porch set up, and we do a lot in the summer out here.
At this time of the year, we try to just sort of decorate for the holiday seasons out here, but the rest of the time of the year, the porch is a very versatile place that we use in a lot of different ways. This side of the porch, it's an extension of our kitchen with the grill down here on the end, and we'll actually use this table to eat out here. And on the weekends, if we entertain, we can open the French doors and hear music, and we can dance out here if we'd like to. So it's a very nice extension of the house most of the time of the year.
It is a three-sided porch, so it gives you the opportunity to, if this does become too hot at one point of the day, you can gravitate over to the other side, and which we'll do. We'll see a little bit of that later. It's a nice porch. It's got it's tall, which allows a lot of light to come in. And I think on this house there's a good amount of windows, which makes for the rest of the house staying light, the inside of the house, even though it's shielded from the sun. There's some landscaping out here, and you're shielded by the evergreens in the front. But do you have some plans for the side here that I understand?
Yeah, these are old lilacs that we've tried to rejuvenate and not too successfully. So my plan is to actually have these taken out, and I'm going to put a moon garden down here, which is a garden that largely blooms at night. And we figured with sitting here in the evening in the summertime, we'll be able to enjoy the night blooming flowers and aromas. So.
That's a nice image. And I understand you've had some of the home concerts here. How's that
We
worked
have.
out?
We have.
Has that overflowed out onto the porch as well, or?
Well, it hasn't, because the one time we did it was in December and it was pretty cool, and the other time we did it there was a huge thunderstorm, so we've basically had to stay inside for the concerts.
This was a functioning farmhouse, and I suppose a lot of people gathered. I understand there were some civic leaders that lived here, and it was once a much more panoramic view of the area. How do you use the porch now in terms of entertaining and I see we're sitting in a very nice place to talk right now with some looks like period piece wicker furniture. Is that how do you all use it now, and how would you guess that compares to the way people used it in the past?
Well, I think porches are the original concept of them, which is a concept which is coming back a lot now. I think in contemporary architecture was really a communal place where you could go outside and the family would gather during nice weather and would commune with one another, and they would commune with nature. And that at the same time it would be a place where you could sort of see your neighbors, and when they walk by, say hi to them and sort of keep an eye on the neighborhood. And I think that was very much in the original keeping of the philosophy of the time at the turn of the century when the house was built, to design it in a way that you could maximize those uses of it.
One of my favorite uses is in the summertime we have a hammock up, and I spend hours and hours and hours reading in the hammock, and it's very nice. It just actually I spend more time napping than reading, but
Start out
that's
reading.
one of my favorite uses of the porch.
I would think. And this is probably the nicer, warmer side, and then there's the other side, which is maybe lends a little bit more shelter, but I think even though that's not the natural, this is not the time of year to be over there, maybe we could go over there and have a look at that anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Well, actually, the porch has evolved into different uses. This has been our side for socializing and eating and everything because it's close to the house and it's the most sheltered. This used to be our seating area, but we use it less so now. But as you can see, we still do. And this is obviously the front door decorated up for Christmas. There's a historic plaque here from Falls Church, and also this is a name of the house, the original name of the house, which was Copeswood, and so we continue to call it that.
This is a 100-year-old house about, and some of the original history of it is a little bit obscure. It was the plot was originally owned by a man named Fowler, and there was a structure in this area which he had named Copeswood, and it may not have been this house originally, but we've carried the name forward, or really the Historical Society has. And subsequent to that, a prominent local politician, State Senator John Donovan, lived here. And then we bought the house from the Browns, and they lived here for 23 years, and so enjoyed it for a very long period of time when they were here.
Well, it's a very gracious porch, and it's held up by these wonderful columns that
This is the north side of the porch, and this has sort of evolved into a storage area for us more than anything. It's easily accessible to the back door. So we have an old organ here that we've had for quite a while that Wesley's going to turn into a bar one day.
Yes, I like to think of this as my antique workshop. Joanne, I think, sees it a little bit more of my sort of junk storage area, but there is an old sort of a foot-operated pipe organ here, which I do hope to restore into a bar, and an old sewing machine too, which I'd like to turn into a cutting board, sort of like for a kitchen area.
And that's my Purple Martin house that's been there also for years that I'm planning to putting up. So this is kind of our unfinished project side of the porch, I guess you might say.
in the summer, in the warmer months, I would imagine it might be the nicest place to pull up a chair, being as it's on the north side. Perhaps.
Yeah, it would be very cool here in the summertime.
Very shaded, very comfortable. It's why we keep the swing over on this side of the house.
Mm-hmm. And this is a great place to store our Christmas tree till we're ready to put it in. Yeah. And we tend to keep firewood here and bicycles here as well.
Well, over here on the north side is the colonnade we spoke about before, and you can see it's chopped off now, but I suppose it extended over to the pump, which is now in the neighbor's yard.
Yes, that's right.
And in fact, at one time, there would have been a path that would have gone beyond the pump and led down to a guest house, which is now on another block of the street. But this would have all have been, you could imagine that the porch really would have flown out and gone down the colonnade and down to the well, and then would have connected you to more of the extended property around here.
Yeah, which is what porches in general do, kind of they're intermediate step between the inside and the outside,
Right.
in this case of
It,
all the area that's surrounded.
So we actually have a lot of wildlife here too in the porch and the surrounding areas. We have a family of possums that live under the house. we have actually a squirrel infestation. And if you can notice around this part of the house, we had them getting into the house, into the walls, and had to have trappers come and trap them and release them off somewhere and block up the entrances. And we have neighborhood cats who like to wander over here and sleep on the furniture. And we actually saw a red-tailed hawk who spent some time in our apple tree this summer. So
The birds are very fond of the porch in general. In fact, when we had hanging baskets around here, they would nest in the baskets pretty regularly. But even without them, we'll get a certain type of bird that likes to sleep in the corners of the porch at night.
swallows, I think.
So it's a gathering place for all.
That's
Right.
right.
People and
Yeah.
wildlife.
Right. I'll often surprise a squirrel sitting on the arm of one of these chairs eating one of the hickory nuts, you know. So,
Well, it's a very nice place, and I'm grateful that you all let me come by and talk to you about it. And it's been walking by for a couple of years now, and it's nice to actually get up on the porch and enjoy it with you. Thanks a lot.
well, thank you for coming by. Certainly a part of the house. I think it was the main selling point of the house when I saw it, at least. I said, whoops, this is the house I want.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity for you to come by and let us share it with you, and come back sometime, just sit.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, great.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Nearly every street in Falls Church was arched over with trees. You walked under a bower. That's what made Falls Church so attractive.
Barbara, we're at Cherry Hill Park, and right by the old Cherry Hill barn, it was the antebellum barn. And we have one of my favorite trees here. As we can see on there, they call it the black gum tupelo. And like I say, this is not only one of my favorite trees, one of my favorite specimen trees. It was our first Tree of the Year program back in 1993, the tupelo was. Well, you know, Barbara, the tupelo is a Creek Indian term that means water tree. So you often find this in a swamp, but also you can find it in an area that's heavily compacted. And this area was compacted because the barn was here, all the animals were around it, constantly compacting the soil. So it can grow in the kind of soil we have now in Falls Church. And but what do you think about the tupelo tree?
It's a beautiful tree. It reminds me of a contorted, when you look at the tracery of the branches, it just is such an interesting weaving. And the way the leaves are nice, green, shiny, leathery leaf. It's known as the sugar maple of the South because of the brilliant color that it turns in the fall.
Oh, that's right. It turns a brilliant red, doesn't
Yes,
it?
brilliant red.
Wow.
And the
Yeah.
bark almost looks like it's a hand slab built work of art. It's really lovely.
I love those burrs, or I don't know if you
Yes.
call them burrs, but those parts that stick out there are just gorgeous.
Yeah, where the trimming was done, and there's some healing going over.
I understand the fruit is quite interesting. That comes out in September.
Yes.
What about that fruit?
Well, that fruit is a purple. We don't get a chance to see it often on the ground because the birds love it so much.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And I think the flower we're in June now when we're filming this, and the hottest day of the year,
Yes.
mind you. It's about 100 right now. And the flowers, were out in May. So we just missed those. But this gives us a lot of shade, and it's about 15 degrees cooler than it is just a few feet from here in the
Easily,
sun.
yes.
So this really helps George Burgess over here working in the barn. He doesn't need any air conditioning as long as he has this tupelo tree. Let's look at this bark a little bit more. This is wonderful stuff. And like you're saying, the way that the branches just sort of gnarl the way up there. It's something like a great painter or sculptor would do. That's
yes.
I don't see any bowl on it. There's no one place where all the branches come out. They just seem to come out from everywhere.
Yeah,
And,
maybe we can get a shot of that dead center.
Oh,
It's
sure.
wonderful.
You bet. And Now these are slow-growing trees, so maybe in a few minutes we can go over and look at a young one as it's growing up.
That's a good idea.
Tupelos used to be common around here, and not many people are planting them. And maybe we can encourage people to plant some more. George Burgess, who runs the barn here, was saying he heard it was 250 years old. How old do you think this tree is?
I would think it was probably 20 or 30 years old before the barn was built, so how would that make it, about 150 maybe?
Sounds good to me, because they had a lot of animals. We're walking through the area that was the haymow area, where they grew hay. And you can get a good shot now of the big old tupelo tree back there.
That branching is just so beautiful.
Everybody should have a tupelo.
Like an etching, yes.
And let's walk on down past the playground here at Cherry Hill and look at the baby tupelo. Now there used to be some silver maples right along the edge, and they were taken down. And you know why silver maples were taken down, right?
Yes, they're considered weed trees, and they really conflict with existing trees by taking a lot of nutrients and water, and they break easily in storms.
So we're going to be, they took those down and put up some baby tupelos. So let's go see the tupelos.
Smaller leaf, smaller tree.
Barbara, this is the kind of thing we like to see people do. When you take a tree down, you put another tree up.
At least one.
Yeah, at least one, if not more, right? So here's a baby tupelo. Looks a little different, doesn't it? Tell me what's
Yeah.
different.
Well, the leaves are smaller. You don't see that characteristic sculpturing of the bark like we did.
Looks almost like a beech tree
Yes,
there,
it
doesn't it?
does. It's very smooth, and the leaves are smaller, and we don't see that contortion yet as it develops. This is a very straightaway tree with very concentric whorls of branching.
You would never know it was the same tree. I
No.
mean, this is a baby tree. That's a mother tree, and you would I would never know that that's a tupelo by looking at the ancient tree. It's gorgeous. Why you can get these around here? Can't you buy them at nurseries readily?
Yes, and a lot of nurseries you can make a special request in the summer, and they'll have a fall digging program, and they can order for fall or spring.
Okay. Well, I understand that it's important to know the botanical name of the trees, because sometimes the nurseries get them mixed up if you go by the common name, because the common name can be used interchangeably. So I believe it's Nyssa sylvatica, isn't
Yes,
it? Nymph of the swamp, I think this is what that means. And even though we're not in a swamp, it grows well on our heavily compacted clay. Nyssa sylvatica, tupelo.
Right.
Uncle George used to take me down to Mankin's Notions and Dry Goods, a corner store at Broad in Washington, where the office building is now. She always had candy, which was something we couldn't have at home. It was a great treat for me to go to Mrs. Mankin's store and have those marvelous penny candies. Uncle George used to carry me down to the store and get them for me. Mother didn't approve, but he did it just the same. I enjoyed it.
Good. All right. Today we're at Master Park. It's nice to see you
Nice to
again.
see you again.
And we're at Oriental Sports Academy right here on Washington Street, right here in City of Falls Church. And this is one of the premier gathering spots in the city. And Master Park, what kind of people come here and how often do they come?
All different type of people coming here, children's, adult, and men and women, and normally about between 2 and 3 times a week, an ongoing program. I've been here 29 years.
Wow, 29 years.
29 years.
And what's your background?
My background is martial art, not only taekwondo, judo, kendo, and hapkido, which is At the moment, judo and taekwondo is a full medal round sports, Olympic sports. But kendo and hapkido is remain traditional martial arts. Kendo is a weapon, like a fencing, Europeans, and Oriental is a kendo is a more like a European fencing, but it's a very limited number of people training because grab with the start with a weapon on your hand. But hapkido is a pure empty hand, empty foot, which is a pure defensive art and tremendous exercise.
And what's the makeup of the class? Is it mostly children or boys, girls,
Yes,
senior citizens?
hapkido is average 40, 35 and 40 years old because of circular motion, strainless martial art, and a good physical exercise and mental development. But taekwondo is a lot of youngsters and also a lot of adult. My school is almost 50%. And there are about 1/4 is ladies and girls.
Which sport is which sport actually breaks the boards? I mean, that's
It's a taekwondo.
yeah.
Breaking board is a major themselves what their level, a strength and technical level. That's why they control themselves. They know themselves, they can control themselves. That's why we cannot practice on you, but we have to practice what the level I am, what the limited I am. So I can practice to with some objects. That's way you know yourself, then you control yourself. That's the main purpose to breaking. Many years you practice empty hand, empty foot, but we have to practice it with a lot of object too.
Now, you ever get people that just want to come in and break boards?
No,
See,
mostly.
if I did it, I'd want to break boards.
But I cannot teach you just breaking board. I have to teach you to like a baby born. They learn how to turn over, and how to they start to crawl, then how to walk.
Yeah, but how long does it take to get to breaking the boards?
Takes about 6 months. 6 months, yes. But dedicated 6 months and listen to good your masters. You learn, you will break.
So
the board.
if I brought my 6-year-old son, what would you recommend for him?
I say 6 years old I say start with the taekwondo, because taekwondo give it to those child to coordination, balances, discipline, focus.
He's not going to start throwing his father around or hurting him.
No.
Are you sure?
You learn how to respect father and mother, and to society. That's what the good thing about a martial art, respect in society. That's most important. And training themselves to become very strong, mental and physical, become a peaceful person. That's what the pinpoint is in martial art training. That's the peace of the world, peace of the mind.
Yeah, but you don't see that on TV. I mean, you see people
Yes,
beating
they're
up
only
people.
they're only using bad part, just beginning part.
What if that's what you want to learn now? What if I wanted just to learn the bad part?
No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna teach you first. You learn many bad things, but you don't call bad. It's
I keep
technique.
trying, but you're not. You
They're
know.
using wrong way. That's a movie and TV. I don't like that.
And what? So for that age, how early would you start a child?
I say about youngest one. I say 5. Difference there. Okay. When you come in into my school, we sit down. I usually interviewing with you. Normally.
And then I say I want to break boards and learn the bad stuff. And then
Yeah,
what do you tell me?
You learn break hold. You learn how to strike, to kicking and punching.
Does anyone come in here? Like, I could see this as a real help with like controlling my employees. Mm-hmm. You know, just if they get out of line, whack.
You can do you.
You know you're not
I'm-
supposed to do that?
I'm not going to teach you to how to force. I teach you how to you earn the respect, how to you give it to respect to society. That's what you want to learn from me.
Okay.
You're not going to learn from me. Beat 'em up your employee.
I'm quitting. I'm finished.
Trust me, that was all an act.
도의 상마 yogi 위인. Training in martial art become better person or better human being. That's what. It's, we all always respect that words. We want to be a better human being. That's what it is.
I loved going to the village. Everybody knew everybody. I would say, "Hello, Mrs. Brown," or "Hello, Mr. Hawkshurst," and they would all know me and my kin.
Well, we're here with one of the most familiar faces in Falls Church. Now, he may not be the most familiar face in Falls Church, but when I was growing up and going to this college and everything, Mr. Herb Kaplow was one of the more revered people in my sphere of influence. Mr. Kaplow I'd watch on television as a correspondent of the news, the type of person that had the integrity we wish would continue to have in our news today. Mr. Kaplow, welcome to Going to the Village and one of the most familiar faces in Falls Church. When did you move to Falls Church?
I think it was 1958. It was either 58 or 59. 58.
Yeah, it was a couple years
November
ago.
of 58.
And where were you in your career at that time?
Well, I had started in 1951 with NBC, so it was 7 years later. I see how smart I am? 51 to 58 equals 7 years.
No, you have to be smart to live in Falls Church. Or a little bit above normal, I think, is the way it goes. But that was great. Now, when you were in 58, were you a correspondent at that time?
I became a correspondent in about 1954 or 55, after about 4 years doing other things and learning the ropes and being a junior employee and a gopher.
Well, what I remember you most as a correspondent, it all is a little bit of a blur, but of course it's the civil rights era. You were one of the primary correspondents covering the civil rights era, and during the early 60s, mid 60s,
Well,
late
in the
60s,
50s,
and in the
actually.
50s.
Well, one of my first assignments was to go up to the Supreme Court on May 17th, 1954, which is a noteworthy day. That was the day that the Brown decision was handed down by the court.
And you saw that?
Well, I was sent up quickly after the bulletin moved that the court had ruled on the Brown decision. So at the court, they don't advertise when they're going to hand down these decisions. Or at least they didn't then. But there was some feeling that it might come at that time. And once it came, boom, everybody ran up because we all knew it was a big, big event.
Who did you interview for that?
I think Thurgood Marshall was there. Well, he was the lead lawyer for the Legal Defense Fund. And there were 3 or 4 other people at the time. I can't remember the names,
sure.
but of course he was the key figure.
What were some of the
And
highlights?
we interviewed some of the lawyers who opposed the desegregation.
Oh, that's right, the gentleman from Georgia, I believe.
Yeah, but they were many lawyers up
That's right.
there because everybody knew that this was an epical event.
Right.
Although I'm not sure to the extent that it played out. I mean, it had ramifications beyond just the desegregating schools that were prejudiced against blacks. The reverberations went far beyond just that in subsequent years.
What were some of the highlights of your long career as a correspondent in journalism and the news?
Well, the biggest story was my coverage of the civil rights, and that meant from about 54, the Brown decision, for about a decade after that, implementation of the decision. And I spent a lot of time roaming around the South with a lot of other reporters. And to me, that was maybe the biggest event, biggest in the broadest sense of that term. It was a profound, profound historical move. It was challenging, it was sometimes dangerous, it was interesting, it was dramatic, and it was hard work.
There was some story you told me, and I can't remember any of the details, about some big decision that was being made, and one of the governors or somebody, you got to go into their office just at the time a major decision was being made. Does that ring a bell?
Well, we interviewed, of course, a lot of the governors, George Wallace, and all the governors of the southern states.
Right.
And you maybe remember the story when this was later on, it must have been in the early 60s, when I went to Tuskegee, I think it was, they were desegregating the Tuskegee public schools. And I got a sense this was after Ole Miss was desegregated with all the violence there. And I did a story that I remember at the end I said, based on talking to people in Tuskegee, that while a lot of the Alabamans would have supported and did support George Wallace's position at Ole Miss, where he was standing against the federal government, that in Tuskegee there were signs that that sentiment was dissipating and that they weren't going to be with George Wallace on this one. And I did a couple of sentences after the spot. And the next day I went back from, I guess, from Birmingham to Montgomery, where Wallace was, just to see what he would have to say. And I walked into the Capitol, and there was Wallace talking to somebody in the hallway, and as I walked up trying to say, "Can I talk to you?" he said, before I could say that, he said, "You wait here, I want to talk to you." I said, "Good." And so after he finished his conversation, he said, "Come on into the office," his office. And he said, "How do you know that I was not standing behind me? How do you know?" He didn't like the report. And I said, "Because I was there and I talked to a lot of people." And then he sent somebody, down to the basement or somewhere, and then to bring up a lot of the letters in support of his position. And while he was there, he talked. He knew me from covering him earlier, and he reached in to the desk drawer and he pulled out a little Star of David. I guess he knew I was Jewish or something. And he said, "See, I got this from a man in Brooklyn who said, 'God bless you, Governor.'" All right. Then somebody came up and he claimed there were lots of letters in support of his position. And so we took pictures of this and we did another spot that night on his reaction. And that might have been the story that I told you earlier. I have lots of stories.
You do. You do.
Some are even true.
Yeah, that's but not the better ones.
Well,
Right.
that's right. No, the better ones, as a matter of fact, are true. The ones that are really true are really better stories.
Hard to believe, right? Yeah. Now, you're a familiar face around here in Falls Church, and you help moderate some of the debates we have and do a lot of things.
Maybe that's because I don't keep up my lawn very well, and that's why I'm a familiar face. People say, "See that house? That belongs to that guy Kaplow."
Now, we don't want to identify where you live by saying
Yeah.
that now,
Well,
of course,
okay.
for the media here. Now, when you were at a stage where you were a household word, whether you knew it or not, around the country.
Not in my household.
Maybe not in your household, but around the country. In Falls Church, what was it like when you came back? Did people know you as a TV correspondent or just some Joe down the street?
We lived in Arlington when we first moved here. We were, and we decided we'd get a bigger house, and we looked and we found a nice house. We didn't know it was in Falls Church. That was an accident.
That's great.
I don't know. Maybe if we knew it was Falls Church, maybe we wouldn't have moved in. I don't know. As it worked out very well.
Good.
And we moved in a lovely neighborhood, and we found out we lived in Falls Church. I guess the tax bills came or something, and our children, 3 sons, all went to the schools, and it turned out. Everybody talks about the schools, how good they are in Falls Church, and they're right.
Good.
And we have 3 grandchildren in the Falls Church schools now, and we have had good lives in Falls Church.
That's great. What do you like about Falls Church?
Well, it's after the schools or along with the schools where they get good educations. Not only did they get good educations, but our sons liked it, which is a nice byproduct of education, to like it. And, well, it's a friendly community. We had good neighbors, good friends, and there are lots of beautiful things around here, and the environment is nice. And it is close to downtown Washington. And for me, my headquarters were always in Washington, and easy getting around. I came from New York City, Flushing, New York, and that too was a lovely community to grow up with. But you know, playing tennis and things like that in an urban center is sometimes difficult because it's crowded and all of that. Here you go and play tennis. It's one of the favorite things, and I'm glad they repaired those 2 tennis courts behind the community center. Anyway, it's a nice place.
Good, that's great. Any favorite places you like to hang out here? Or?
Home.
Home. Okay, good. That's a good place. We have a lot of nice homes here.
That's right.
That's great.
No, but I do a lot of walking now, and I walk along the bicycle path, and
it's a good place.
And I'd rather walk along there than have one of those. What do they call those things? The things you walk on and they stay in place.
Oh, treadmills. Yeah, right. They're boring.
And one of the reasons that it's nicer to walk, because even though I walk the same route, it's really lovely.
There's a lot of nice people. People say hello.
Yeah, I mean, and
say
the
hello
bicycle,
to you.
once in a while, the bicycles miss you by a half an inch or an eighth of an inch, you know.
It gets a little adrenaline rush, makes life interesting.
That's right. You dodge your way, evade your way up. But I haven't figured out whether it's a bicycle path or a jogger's path or a walker's path.
It's a path.
It's a path.
It's a path.
But everybody claims rights to those.
That's right. Well, that's
and sometimes,
nature of democracy.
Well, I became attuned to the bicycle horn going tweet, tweet, and that means move over, Buster.
Real fast, yeah.
And sometimes somebody says something nice. Never unnice, although somebody told me once I was walking on the wrong side. I should have been walking on the right side.
Well, do you know next to the bike path, though, there's, in most, I don't know if it's the whole length of it through Falls Church, but there's an additional little gravel trail.
Not where I walk.
Okay.
But what I do is I try to walk on the grass.
Right.
Not only to not be hit by the bikes or whatever. They have a right. I guess if it ever came to the Supreme Court, we'd probably all have equal rights to the path. But I think it's better on your feet to walk on the.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Kaplow speaking.
I agree.
So I walk on the grass. Wouldn't it be ironic if I were hit on the bicycle path while on the few moments when I'm on the hard surface?
No, we won't talk about that.
That's right.
So what do you, you've been here for 40 some odd years, and you've seen the whole world. Any comments on Falls Church? You said you have very definite, some definite beliefs about Falls Church or feelings about Falls Church. What type of thing would you like to put across?
The people are nice.
Yeah.
There are problems here, obviously. We wrestle with them, and it's
we're human.
And it's you know, we ought to wrestle with them. We ought to know about them so that we can do something. Which is going back sort of to the whole rationale for journalism, which was my discipline. Is you reveal these things over time, even though they hurt.
Well, you're a hard-hitting journalist. What do you think are some of the? What do you think are some of the biggest issues we should deal with?
Well, obviously there is some development along the main street and all of that, which people, and you have different groups, and that's fine because that's the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
And you argue them out in the theory, at least, and I think it's been upheld for a long time that you really end up with the best public policy when you go through this process of arguing and hoping you come up with the best. It's pretty rough sometimes, but at least in theory, it's supposed to work that way in a democracy, and as I said, it often does work that way.
Well, you're a person who's seen a lot throughout your decades, and being here in Falls Church and being throughout the whole world and helping us to grow in watching you in the media all these years, and it's a real honor to be with you today and being one of the familiar faces in Falls Church. And I just
one of the old familiar faces in Falls.
Okay, one of the mature, very mature.
I'm glad you're better with words than I am.
Mature and experienced faces. And thank you for being here in Falls Church and helping us be a better community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I heard music everywhere in town. A lot of folks had pianos and other instruments in their homes, and I could just walk up and down the street and hear people playing pianos and violins and singing. Some fellows were always sitting on the front steps of the stores down by the crossroads playing harmonica. Of course, there was music at church on Sundays and Wednesdays. A band always played at town picnics. One of my favorite things was dances at the Oddfellows Hall.
There really is music everywhere in Falls Church City, and we're very lucky because Dave Eckert's going to join us today here at the location of Peg Jones's house. Peg Jones is now deceased, but some years ago, Dave and I met at this very location, and we want to tell you all about it. Dave, you want to join us?
Sure. Hey, Jim.
How you doing?
Good.
Good to see you.
Well, it was about 4 years ago that we met. There's four of us, and you and Peg Jones and Jerry Press and myself to try to save the State Theater. Remember that?
I remember it, and as you know, the State Theater is now up and alive.
Yep, and we're really happy that that's happening. And but something very interesting happened at Peg Jones's house when we were trying to save the State Theater. It was back in 1993, and Peg was talking about the concerts she'd have in her house.
In fact, not only did we start the idea for the home concert series, but as you know, it's been a success ever since. And you want to tell us more about it?
Sure. Well, after we had our little powwow in there, and we got really excited talking about home concerts and how we could have concerts all over Falls Church in these beautiful homes like Peg Jones's house. And you know, with Fox's Music, know all these musicians everywhere. Since for the last 7 years, we've had concerts, and about 14 a year.
And I don't think we've had any vacancies, have we?
No, every
has
concert.
It always been a sellout?
Every concert sells out.
Why don't we listen to some of this music? I know the 13th Street Sax Quartet is made up of 3 employees from Fox's Music Company, and one of them's my manager, and I know I'd like to hear his playing. What do you think?
Whoa,
Pretty
that
good,
was
huh?
great. Yeah, and I was there that night, you know, and you know, they started out playing classical, and
Yeah.
after that they went into jazz, and
Yeah.
really blew our socks off once they started playing some of the really hot jazz too. So they're very versatile, and this is actually the third time over 7 years they've performed for us.
Is that right? And I can't imagine 4 saxophone players at one time. But
Yeah.
who else we got?
Well, we also have, we can show to you, is the United Gospel Singers. That's Shirley Tinner, who lives up on Tinner Hill.
Right.
And the primary house up there. And with her group was an extended family group who've been together for 26, 27 years. And if you can imagine, 7 huge voices in a living room and with one piano. And here we go. We're going to listen to them now.
All right.
The angels, the shepherds were sleeping in their flock. The angels came, told them a message. We'll sing that same message today. You are children of God, those who love Him, those who are so happy that He came into this simple world. We want you to go tell it on the mountains, tell it on your job, tell it in your home, everywhere, tell it everywhere you go.
Tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
I would not be a sinner. Oh, I tell you, the reason why I'd be afraid my Lord might call me, I wouldn't be ready to die. Come on, go.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
I would not live a sinner. How can I tell you the reason why I'd be afraid my Lord might call me? I wouldn't be ready to die. Come on, go.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
Come on, let's go.
Go tell it on the mountain.
Come on, let's go.
Go tell it on the mountain.
Don't you wanna go?
Go tell it on the mountain.
Don't you wanna tell it?
Go tell it on the mountain.
Come on and go.
Go tell it on the mountain.
Come on and go.
Go tell it on the mountain.
Baby, go.
Go tell it on the mountain.
And let's go.
Go tell it on the mountain.
Come on.
Go tell it.
Come on, tell it.
Go tell it.
Come on, go.
Go tell it. You go tell it.
Come go.
Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it.
Come sing it.
Go tell it. You go tell it. Go tell it.
Come shout it.
Go tell it.
Come preach it.
Go tell it. You go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it. You go tell it. Go tell it. Go tell it. Go tell it. Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it.
Come tell it.
Go tell it. Go tell it. Go tell it. Jesus Christ is born. That Jesus Christ is born. That Jesus Christ is
Wow. What do you think?
I was just so overwhelmed. When I went up at the intermission to talk about it, I couldn't talk.
I confess I don't know what we're charging now for the series, but isn't it a few dollars per show?
Well, it is a few dollars. It's a single ticket is $14, and if you buy a series ticket, it comes down to $12 a ticket. And what they get is they get an evening in a beautiful house with professional musicians performing great music that is prepared just for that event. The musicians play for a little over an hour in two
Right.
half-hour sets, and in the meantime, in the middle, we have about a half-hour intermission, and the homeowner provides luscious food and drink for people. And so for $12 to $14, what a person gets is a Kennedy Center quality performance in the intimacy of a beautiful home with that's only 20 or 30 people are attending.
Well, I know the nice thing too is that there are very few venues where smaller groups, individual pianists or a small ensemble can perform and where we can find some employment for them. So for me, the owner at Fox's, it's a wonderful, wonderful idea because it allows them to pick up an extra few bucks.
Well, yeah, because all the money goes to the musician. Now, this is sponsored by the Falls Church Village Preservation and Improvement Society, which was founded in 1885. And one of their earliest rules is there had to be music at every event, including board meetings. Boring board meetings, there had to be music. Well, we don't do that anymore. But we do this as a pass-through. We don't, we pay for, different things like the mailing, and but all the money that's brought in from the tickets goes right to the employees. Right. I mean, not to the employees, but to the musicians.
What are the plans for this coming year? Who do you have lined up?
Well, we have again, every time we have a series, we have a different kind of music. I mean, you might hear country music, you might hear classical music, or jazz, or ethnic. We have we're going to have some bluegrass music. There's some pickers coming in and performing in the spring.
Right.
And then we have some Hawaiian music. There are local Hawaiian musicians. We're going to have more jazz. We're going to have more classical music in the spring. So we have a whole lineup. We haven't put them all in. As of the filming of this, we don't have it all scheduled. But they can hear about this by either reading the Falls Church News Press. We put an article in there. Or we do mailings to the members of the Village Society, and so they can become members of the Village Society and get that, or they can go to Fox's Music and pick up the flyer. And
Right.
Fox's, so those are the three ways we promote the home concerts. And like I say, they all sell out, and so it's just a matter of finding out about them in time. And these are in homes that are not open to the public. In
Right.
fact, we only tell people where the homes are after they pay for the ticket.
Right, and let's go back to that point one more time. All of the money that we collect for the Concert in the Home series goes to the musician. It doesn't go to David, it doesn't go to Fox's. It literally helps keep musicians with live performances. And that's pretty exciting, and I want to thank you for my part.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Take care, Jim.
Take care, Dave.
Sometimes I would walk to and from the village along the roads, but I loved to walk the trails and alleys behind houses, through fields and woods. It just seemed more special.
It's a new day on the trail today. Got rained out on that first shot, and we're coming back to the same point. A sunny day out here, and you can hear the city crew in the background maintaining the trail. They're fixing it up for a special event we're going to have here, a commemoration of the trail. We're right here at the beginning of the area that has some narrative signs. In the Village Preservation Improvement Society, we put in some signs that have weathered quite a bit, but they are illustrated signs to show why we try to save these forest fragments, that they're very special places for us in this urbanized area. We're going to walk over Ross's Run. This is an intermittent stream. It's dried up right now, but as it rains, it comes through here. It's named after Ross Johnson, who worked very hard on getting this area developed into a forested area and helped save the stream. This whole area was preserved
as a result of an effort back in 1991 when the city wanted to engineer the stream and put in some gabions and what we call hardscape, and channelize the stream more. And a number of people came out and said, no, we have to preserve the stream, improve it, and then also the floodplain. And so this became a very special place. As we enter this area right up here, right in the bend of the trail, we come up to a culverted stream that's in a pipe, and it's an ever-flowing stream, and you have to walk off the trail and over to the stream to see this big ugly pipe here. But we have a plan for this pipe. Over the next year, we're going to uncover this pipe, open it up, and this will be an open stream coming into here, and it'll be a gorgeous stream with a bridge over it to walk on. And I think you'll really, this will be a whole nother show when we open this stream up. But you see the catalpa trees growing up here. We have the tupelo trees. Now here's an old bamboo area that we're constantly fighting, trying to keep the bamboo back from killing the other trees. But here's one of the old signs about the 4 Mile Run watershed right here, which shows the 4 Mile Run that we're by and all the different streams that come in that are underground now. And one day we'll uncover those and get the fish back in them. Over here we have a plant called Touch Me Not. It's a native impatient plant, and when if you get poison ivy, and there's generally poison ivy nearby, and the Algonquins used to use that whenever they got poison ivy. They'd rub that Touch Me Not on it. There's a sharp drop off here, so you don't want to go too close to this. Oh, you can see the old holes where the crayfish had dug their holes over here. This is all spring-fed water. It's not real clean because unfortunately we have a lot of oil-based problems in here, and E. coli problems. It's actually designated by the state and the EPA as being a polluted stream, so but we plan to clean this up. We have to clean up the whole environment first. Nice clover right here with the white on it. We call that a white. Oops, there he goes. They love that clover. Every week you come out here, something else is in bloom, and something that was in bloom is gone. Makes it kind of interesting.
One of the most interesting things to me is that right in the middle of Falls Church, right in the middle of one of the fastest urbanizing areas anywhere, we have magnificent old houses and trees, beautiful music still in homes and on the streets, marvelous places to gather, and trails to return home on. It makes me wonder why these wonderful qualities of village life remain here in Falls Church.